6, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane by to visit Glen Rock, need crypto, told me I should bring the Glock with me. So I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. Who you with?
Yeah, that's good. Fuck yeah. Perfect. Look at there he is. So let's start that again. This thing that you're doing, which is you're just getting jacked. I mean, when I say this thing you're doing, it's getting jacked. But for me, like everything I do, anything I read, anything I watch usually becomes content, which is what's going to happen today. So like in a sense, like I'm in that mode right now. I'm in Glensploitation mode where it's like, doesn't matter. I'm like Truman Show at all times. Let's just put this all out in the world. You're getting jacked, but there's no way you're just going to get jacked and like not fucking, you maximize it, right?
No, definitely not. I mean, I just published an essay I just turned in an essay for Numero Berlin called ECAL, which is an anagram for anabolics I have known and loved, which is a reference to Alexander Shulgin's tryptamines I have known and loved, TCAL. And,
nice.
I mean, of course, Botched Chadification, Alex Beanstalk and I's conceptual rock and roll band, was born out of my interest in all this stuff. And the video came out, and I kind of missed my peak for the video because I was like on a heavy bulk right before we got commissioned for it. So I only had like 2 weeks to diet. So like, honestly, I wish like you're able to film it now, because right now I found a real fucking sweet spot. Like I'm the leanest I've been since I was 26, but unlike when I was 26, I have 20 more pounds of meat tissue on me. Like I was in very good shape back then, but I had more like Bruce Lee look.
Well, you were a runner too, right?
Runner and calisthenics guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what'll happen.
Yeah. But honestly, like it is like, that's all true. I'm obviously going to turn anything into a bit of a show that I'm into, but that wasn't the original goal. The original goal was just to, first of all, it was that I missed my fitness. And then as I started getting better and better again, the goalpost just started going back. Like, now I want to get the strongest I've ever been. Now I want to look the sickest I've ever looked. And now it's at the point where it's like, like I said a year ago, if I could get to 200 pounds lean, that'd be great. I've already smoked that. So, like right now I'm like 195, but I have very little body fat. Like I'm showing veins like all day.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. But cool, I found a real good cycle too.
Like, there you go.
I was taking, I was taking Masteron earlier in the spring, which is great for like inflating the muscle, but it also makes you hold a shitload of water, and your face look puffy and shit. So I cut that one out, and right now I'm just on Test and Anavar and growth hormone. Growth hormone is fucking unbelievable. I can absolutely totally understand why like athletes across the spectrum love this stuff, because it is like truly performance enhancing, makes your metabolism go through the fucking roof. Like I'll wake up like at 4 a.m. and it's like I was just doing zone 3 cardio for like an hour because I have like so much sweat dripping off of me. Like it just kind of puts your body in a zone where it's like constantly working and burning and like hardening. And so yeah, I'm just kind of running those 3 compounds right now, keeping my food relatively medium-ish, like 2,200 calories a day. and maybe then I'll do like another heavy bulk fall. And the goal is I want to do one bodybuilding show at the end of all of this, just to like knock it off my bucket list and really make people fucking see.
Does that turn into a documentary, a Pumping Iron style documentary? That'd be really cool.
Dude, we're fully fucking doing it. So like, yeah, first of all, we're gonna do like a jokey kind of one, like where I can get to practice the poses and whatnot.
Sure.
James Ferraro and Zach Davis, who you know.
Yep.
They're gonna put together like some like weird surrealist like jock jams kind of music, and they'll play the music, and then I'll do like a I'll do like a pose down, and we can just do that at like a gallery or something, and then
fuck yeah.
yeah, and then hopefully I can like do like a real show. Even if I probably will lose. You know, these guys are insane, and they're all, you know, a lot of them are going to be competing to be professionals. But I just want to like say that I did it and not get laughed on stage. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I ran a marathon because I wanted to run a marathon. I didn't think I was going to beat the fucking Kenyan thermometer build guy. Like what the fuck? Hell no, dude. The guy was on billboards. The guy that won the race. I was running by his billboards while he was already finished having whatever the fuck he ate after the race. Nothing, probably. Like right after the race, I was looking at the billboard. The guy was like done already, but I'm like, fuck, I did it. You know, like who cares?
Well, it's so easy to have your standards warped by like the sports you engage with or whatever, because like, you know, people obviously coming up to me looking like shocked if they haven't seen me in like a year or whatever, and they'll be like, whoa, you look fucking crazy, but I'll be like in my head thinking like, I don't look like shit, dude, but I'm thinking about myself against like Phil Heath and you know, Kai Green and Nick Walker and shit, like, yeah, compared to those fucking guys. But like, the more I get into this kind of thing, the more I realize it really is just genetics number one.
Yeah,
because you can take as many drugs as you want, but most people hit a ceiling with how hard and how much muscle they're going to be able to carry.
Yeah, and also legs. Things like legs are so hard. It's so hard to have like perfect legs unless you were just born like they're born with the genes to have nice legs. Like I've seen so many guys that are in tip-top shape, are in insane shape, but their legs look like shit. Like they just do. I mean,
their calves don't grow or whatever.
Right. But then you'll see the guy hasn't worked out in 30 years, whose just calves are just fucking like just boulders back there. Yeah. It's just. I mean, it's just part of the process.
I have crazy legs, so that's cool. But the one thing you absolutely need if you're going to be an elite bodybuilder is the Christmas tree. So like, if you don't have a stomach or a waist that's naturally smaller than your shoulders, you're not going to be a pro. Or if you do by like some miracle get your professional card, you're not going to be competing at the highest level. Just like, you know, because even there's guys like, you know, who have like no body fat on their frame, but still don't have that look, you know, that like that high, that like wide out flared lat with the small waist. And the flip side of that is, of course, the more you grow, the more your fucking waist grows too. So like, you really can't like reverse those genetics in any single way, because every time you do squats, your legs are going to get bigger, but so is your fucking stomach, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's not like an audio software where you can be like, let me mute this track. You know what I mean? While I build this. Well, yeah, it's not a DAW that you have while you're lifting. I was wondering about, you went to the University of Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Now I feel like now you actually look like you did. Like you're in Arizona. You're an Arizona guy now. Like you look like you're from fucking Arizona now. Like it's crazy.
I mean, there were some of the frat dudes there where one of the frats got kicked off campus actually because they were dealing in pills and anabolics.
Nice.
So, you know, some of those dudes were looking crazy. And I remember I used to go, because I was a runner back then, so I'd see I used to run around the campus. So University of Arizona campus is fucking enormous. Like one lap around the whole school, you've already done about 3 miles. But I see this he used to drive me nuts. This little fucking like orange fuck. He had his hair like perfectly spiked when he was running, and he was so competitive. Like every time he saw me, he would just like start sprinting ahead.
Right.
But this dude had like, if he looked a little less retarded, he definitely had like a pro bodybuilder potential. And as far, I believe he was in the frat, SAE was the name of the frat, Sigma Alpha Epsilon, that got kicked off campus. I actually rushed a frat and got into Fiji, or Phi Gamma Delta. They enjoyed my, I rushed with my high school best friend, Zach, and we both got in. I think they liked our accents and shit like that. But I think I wrote about this recently. I finally told my frat rushing story on Safety Propaganda. But like, I was like convinced that like the crazy hazing shit was like a thing of the past. I was like, no, man. My dad kept like warning me. He's like, Adam, it's gonna go fucking bad. Believe me. Like, you know, you're just setting the dumber shit you do is the more it's gonna catch up with you. And I was just like, nah, Dad, nah, they fucking think I'm cool. And then sure enough, once it went down, it was just like, it was fucking nightmarish.
They spit the eggs. I went to like I guess it's a rush event, like when you're about to join, like, or like when they're trying to get new members in and like see if this is where you want to go. There was a night they were doing Pledge Week. There you go. They were doing like my buddy, this guy named Steve, who like he didn't have a shirt with sleeves at all. Like he cut all his shit like perfectly. He was so in white sunglasses, fucking, you know, buzz cut. Like he was going to join, but he was like, hey, come with me. And I was like, yeah, we'll get fucked up. Sounds good. You know what I mean? And we go there. Yeah. Oh, okay. Bring the legs out. I see you. But bring them out. Yeah. Hey, that's fine. I'm trying to up the views. On the channel. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing a lot of Adam right now. A lot of his
Jack Mason is like logged on immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And, but anyways, this guy, I saw these one guys were like, yeah, and then one of our events is like, we've toned it down, guys. So if you join, like, the hazing's not that bad. We just all spit eggs into each other's mouth, and I was like, nah, man, that's fucking gay, dude. I grew up an only child. I like that brotherhood thing is like, I have friends, but I'm like, I don't know, man. That must have been a thing where if like you were craving brotherhood all the time. Like I was just like, no, I thought we were just gonna party. Like we were just
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. In retrospect, I kind of wish that I just went through with it as like a endurance ritual or like like I do think that can be character building to an extent. But I was just like, I felt so out of phase with fraternities. Like I didn't share any interests with these guys. I was already in that school and like, what the fuck am I doing here? You know, like, but they paid half my tuition. It was warm and sunny. So that's where I went, but I dropped out like immediately after it went bad. So did Zach, my friend. You know what they did do? Their like ultimate hazing, like final ritual is the elephant walk.
Not familiar.
You're not familiar with the elephant walk?
I know a crab walk and a bear walk, but I do not know an elephant walk.
All right, so just to set this up, like the picture, the Fiji house was like an absolute crazy palace. $5 million house right across from the campus police department. So that just kind of like emphasizes the fact that this is all like an open secret, right? So the elephant walk is like right before you're finally initiated into the frat. And they didn't really make much of a secret of it. They even had like a t-shirt that said Fiji, we walk the walk with like an elephant on it.
Yeah. Hell
so the elephant walk is like they strip the pledges naked and then the pledges have to like grip each other dick by dick. So like one hand on the dick in front of you and then one hand on the dick in the back and your dick's getting grabbed by some dude. And they made you walk 400 yards. So rotations around the house courtyard.
Fuck.
Yeah, well, they have like sorority girls there, and everybody's screaming at you. And then the worst part, as if this isn't degrading enough, if you are spotted to get even like minimum erect, which you have to assume wouldn't necessarily make you gay, because it's like a high stress situation and your dick's being fucking gyrated back and forth as you're walking around.
Sure.
They kick you out immediately.
Oh, really? I thought they would have made
so
you
you're just
fucking...
like,
oh, God.
So you're just like walking around in terror, just like begging yourself to not like pump any blood to your fucking dick direction. But yeah, I knew this guy that I stayed friends with, who was another pledge, Mike Funk. He was a great guy, but he would tell us just like, you know, they're supposed to be sworn to secrecy, but of course they never are. And he would just be coming back being like, you have no idea what you guys missed tonight. Tonight they let me punch out the brother who gave me the most shit in the entire house, but they didn't tell me if I did it, I'd have to get punched by him back, and he has like a huge black eye.
Fuck. Jesus, man.
But like, I get it at the same time. Like, if you have to endure that shit to get in, and then you're like told that the next kids don't have to do any of it, that's like an injustice in and of itself. So I think that's just how the tradition of it perpetuates itself.
I also think that there's like a weird, I think blackmail's too strong, but like, you know, a lot of people join frats to get jobs in a, you know, there might be some that'll be in financial, propel people into the financial things. It helps you in the hiring process. You put that on your resume. There might be another guy. So if you did the elephant walk, did everything that did it right, and then you apply at a company where another guy did the elephant walk, you might know that like, my secret's safe with you, brother. You know, at this job, like you're not going to participate in my Me Tooing. You're not going to do like in the financial district. So there is like a weird Epstein level political blackmail kind of thing. Like I just maybe like a bond forged. You know what I mean? Like I guess.
And frats are like they're coolest when you think of them as like actual still existing secret societies, right? Like. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what they are. They're these elite groups, and like if I stayed in Fiji, certainly wouldn't have any bearing on the life that I ended up choosing. But if I did decide to like get good at finance or whatever, I could have gotten fucking hired anywhere in goddamn LA, San Francisco, wherever. You know, they were huge. 100%. Yeah, I remember them telling us that. Like, and a lot of the kids were like, you know, they were party animals, but these weren't like dumb kids. These were like really smart, like A student types in this frat, high achievers. That but it was funny too. There were also the legacies and shit and the legacies were always the biggest like losers that had to get led into I don't know. It was an interesting month, but I was the one like. Dude, I was, as you can probably imagine, I was already like a total maniac when I was 18 years old. So when all the hazing rituals started, what happened is they invited us over for a quote-unquote alumni dinner. And then when the pledges got to the dinner line, they ran out of food. And everybody was like, what the fuck? How do you run out of food? So then they introduced us to our alumni speaker, who is very clearly not an alumni, but like a 22-year-old, ultra fucking yoked, thick-necked, brolic fucking white dude from San Diego. And God, my images of this are so kind of blurry, but like he comes out and he's just like, you know, veins pulsating. He is so amped to get this shit going. And all I remember is he starts like giving this spiel, but like very like hostile. And all of a sudden he goes, this fraternity was built on several values: brotherhood, honor, integrity, yada, yada, yada. But best of all, and my personal fucking favorite, humility. Now all you freshmen faggots, get your fucking heads on the table. And next thing you know, you just feel smacked and your head's getting cranked. And then they're like, dude, so then they start dousing us with condiments, which for me is fucking torture because I hate like mustard and mayonnaise and shit, and they are covering me in it. And then he starts calling out all of us for all our various like transgressions over the last month, and I had like several. I had broken a bong. I had
Oh.
made out with one of the brother's girlfriends. I had done blow with 3 seniors who ratted me the fuck out. Like, it just went on and on and on, dude. Like, so, yeah, it sucked. There was this one guy, Billy Smith, that I always remember. He was this like chubby, like really drunkard type. And he's just like screaming his head off. And he's like, somebody get me a fucking bowl of fucking cereal. And I'm like, well, what do you want? He goes, cinnamon toast, motherfucking crunch.
Oh,
and
God.
I go, all right, I got you. And then I give him the cereal. And then he just takes it and fucking pours it on my head like that. And he goes, I didn't say cinnamon toast crunch. I said honeycombs, you fucking idiot. Like, it was nuts,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah, that's not for me as well. That's not for me either. That doesn't work. That doesn't work for me. I got too much of a fucking mouth for that shit. And
yeah, and that's the thing. You cannot talk back at all. It just makes it so much worse.
Probably preps you for the workplace a lot better. Every job's gonna be easy as fuck if you can do that. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's like boot camp, man. It's definitely like a hardening experience because it's like 5 months of just not eating, barely sleeping, trying to keep your grades up, and just like enduring fucking hell.
Oh my God. So we're going to get you right back to the episode, but I just wanted to let you guys know of a few other things we offer at Rare Candy Industries. We have a Substack with free and paid subscription options. Free subscribers get access to all written content. That includes Bob's Red Pill. That's the best thing going on the internet right now. Trust me. Paid subscribers get full access to our premium episode feed. And that's just every episode we don't necessarily want to share with the general public, if you know what I'm saying. Again, that's rarecandy.substack.com. We also have merch. That link's a little long for me to say right now, but go to the description, go to our merch store, and find a shirt that's right for you. We have Rare Candy shirts, Dr. Bronner soap label shirts, Rishi mushroom shirts, all types of stuff there. Check it out. There's got to be something for you. And lastly, check us out on social media. On Instagram, we're Rare Candy Pod, but on Twitter, we're at Rare Candy Pod 1. All right, enough of that. Let's get you back into the episode. Today, the reason I brought you on is because I could tell I listen to System of Systems when you have new episodes and stuff, and it comes out and it says I could tell that you've been referencing Tarantino's book, but like no one's read it. Have you noticed that? Like no one,
like me, no, you, and Alec, I think.
Yeah, a couple of guys. I think you know Matt Fresta, Rango Tango magazine, like guys like that, like they've read it and stuff. But like a lot of like, it seemed like a book that I thought everybody had read. I found out about it from you, and then him doing the press hits on all the big like Tom Segura type podcasts, Rogan. He was doing all these types of hits, but nobody read it. It's called Cinema Speculation. And it was an awesome read. The problem is I think everybody thought, and I remember telling my wife about the book because I wanted her to get it for her father or for her stepdad for his birthday. I was like, you get it for him because he's like just such a big movie history inside baseball kind of guy. And so she got it for him. She goes, does he talk about the feet at all? I was like, no, he doesn't talk about the fucking foot fetish. And that's all they want to know about Tarantino, right? They want to know about why there's so much blood everywhere, why there's which I guess he does get into there, but
I mean you can infer that from this book for sure.
100%. You could also infer the racial stuff from the book too, because he gives himself a pass the entire book because of his old black friends that were fucking his mom.
Mom's black boyfriends.
His mom was getting
I really like that detail.
Yeah. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's such a good book. I actually listened on audio and then I bought a hard copy just to look back. It's a fun one. You could just go back and read like a chapter at a time, especially because it's divided by movie. But I listened on hard. He pops in from time to time on the audio book. Like he doesn't do the whole book, but all the ones that involve his black friend, he cops in and does the chapter. So it's really funny.
You know what I thought was interesting about that though, is like he because he does do the like he talks in ebonics and shit when he gets like excited and whatnot, and people always sort of clown him for it. But I think he actually does have like a genuine comfort around black people that most liberals don't identify with. So like it's not coming from it's not coming from like this try hard place. It's just like he really doesn't think about it. He's sort of interested in Black culture, and
dude, he was being taken to Jim Brown movies and like Superfly when he was like 9 years old. That's all you know. That's all. I grew up in a super diverse, like went to like schools that were predominantly Mexican, like a lot of like, you know, African and stuff like that. And I just was like, I thought you could just, and like, there were like rules, because it was just somebody would say, hey, that's fucked up, don't say that. Like that would be the it wasn't like a teacher, it was just like somebody would face to face be like, hey man, don't talk like that around me. And so like there was this weird regulation, but then the minute I got to the internet or even college and stuff, there were people that constantly said like, oh, actually you can't do that and you can't do this and that. But what Tarantino does so well is that he never acknowledges that that's against the rules ever, not once in the book. That anything that he does, people might hate this, people might say that this what I'm saying is racist. He never ever says anything about that in the book, which I love. He pretends that it's 1997. He pretends it's 1997 when he's doing this book.
I mean, I've always admired the way he dealt with this shit. Like, you know, when Spike Lee took him to task for saying the N-word so much in his movies, he literally said on Howard Stern, Spike Lee can shut the fuck up. And honestly, a racist person wouldn't say that. A racist person would be like falling on their face to cover their ass. Right. So Tarantino still sees, he sees Spike Lee as an equal, as a peer. And as a peer, he's telling him to shut the fuck up. Like, you're wrong. Do you know the MMA fighter Sean Strickland?
I've heard the name. I don't know about him.
He's this hilarious, like real redneck fighter. Got hurt a couple years ago, but has been on a tear recently. He's fighting great again. But he was an actual neo-Nazi skinhead as a teenager, and claims to have overcome his racial hate through fighting, through being trained by and with black guys, and being friends with black guys. Now, you know, libtards would say like, oh, that's just an excuse. You can still have a black friend and hate black people. It's like, I don't think so. I don't think that's true at all. Yeah. This Strickland and Tarantino way of overcoming racial difference through like actual interaction and engagement is so much more authentic. And I think people are more heartwarmed by it than just enforced racial discipline on language and like behavior and whatnot. Because like there's nothing actually more real than having sort of irrational feelings and overcoming those feelings through actual experience. And that's why Tarantino was able to like, that's why he can talk in Ebonics, you know, on the radio, and it can be corny, but it's still forgivable and kind of like funny and charming to an extent, because it's not coming from any place of maliciousness. It's all, that guy is pure enthusiasm and excitement. You know? Yeah,
and he can riff with he could riff with the best with them. Yeah. He could riff with anybody who would ever say like, yeah, you could talk like that, but do you even know what that movie's from? Yeah, he knows what that movie's from that he's quoting, because he's seen it like 85 times. Like in different he used to go to movie. I mean, you want to talk about like, I hate the way the term autism is thrown out there, because it just means you're passionate about something and all that. But he would talk about like when he saw Rolling Thunder, right? Not a black movie at all, but like he would go, or Taxi Driver, he would go to different neighborhoods where the demographic was different in LA and go watch the black in that theater to see how what the audience thought was cool, like what the audience thought was dumb. And in Taxi, one of my favorite parts when he talks about Taxi Driver is black people thought Taxi Driver was a comedy. Like they were just like laughing at Max Katie or whatever, because he was saying like, why you buy her that album? Every white bitch got that album already. Like, you know, like taking her to see the porno. He's nasty as fuck. Like just like laughing, you know, like I just laughed at. And I thought, that's great. It's great.
When he's writing, I thought his insight about the choice, even though Harvey Keitel is phenomenal in that film, but white pimps were just like this total fake thing that like didn't actually exist at all. And I don't think like that's such an obvious like statement to make. Like I see pimps in New York all the time. I've never seen a white one. It's always some fucking mean looking black guy.
Mm-hmm.
But in Taxi Driver, we're supposed to believe that there's this like sophisticated, kind of charming, debonair, pedophile pimp played by Harvey Keitel, white dude. And it works through the strength of the performances, but it's also like it kind of takes you out of the gritty realism of the film.
Right.
Someone who was in any way anxious about racial distinctions wouldn't have made that point, but Tarantino did it and was absolutely correct about it. I mean, he is the ultimate like Gen X liberal. He is like the post-racial 90s liberalism incarnate, where these sorts of anxieties and things just kind of fade away and we can all acknowledge that there is differences, but that they're okay. So, kind of engaging with his work honestly feels, even though he has always been at the cutting edge or whatever, it also feels kind of like reading this book made me feel like I was reading Rolling Stone magazine in the early 90s again or something, It just reminded me of a world that we lost.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 1972. Like a lot of people want to return to a time like, 1970. No, it feels like 1997 or even 2002.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Just reading like an honest depiction of something, not malicious, not trying to prove any point. It's just, look, this is what happened. And it's funny what you said about like, yeah, the black pimp and stuff. And like somebody, and then also the Spike Lee thing, because Spike Lee has made a career of, look, I actually don't hate Spike Lee's movies. I love He Got Game. I just
not all of them anyways.
No, he has some.
Yeah, I listened to your guys' show on it. Yeah,
I fucking love.
And I like He Got Game a lot too.
It's a great, but then also but like Spike Lee has always made a career of, and Tarantino would understand this too as a critic, because he's very much a critic. But like Spike Lee has made a career of going after white directors for not making the movie that he probably should just go ahead and make himself. Absolutely. Like Clint Eastwood had, I forget what the Clint Eastwood, I think Heroes of Iwo Jima. He had a really, really tough time with Heroes of Iwo Jima because he said you didn't depict all the black people that were saving Iwo Jima. Now, I'm not a World War II, or whatever that even is, whatever war that even is, but like, I'm not even
it's World War II, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. But what I mean is
Japanese World War II.
Yeah, but Clint Eastwood just said, why don't you just go make the movie then? Why don't you just go make your version of that movie? I won't be mad. I'm not going to come to your movie and say you got it wrong. But if you feel so passionate about that, why don't you just do that then? Because like that's just and again, that's another guy who, look, Clint Eastwood's from a time where he's probably dropped the hard R from time to time. I'm not gonna.
Sure.
Yeah. Like but I don't think he was supporting the Klan. I don't think he was doing shit like that. Like I think he was just like, old timey. I was born in 1925 or whatever. Like, yeah, probably racist, but he wasn't. He was definitely not
for the Klan.
Yeah. He was just one of those guys where he was like, but he would have, like I said, he would have said, "Damn, I got to cover my footsteps. I got to apologize to Spike Lee because I don't want him to find out all the other shit I do wrong." With Tarantino, it's all there. He's like, everything I do wrong is on screen, so you can just critique my movie the way I critique everybody else's movie. And then we can all just, it's like almost like he almost assumes everybody operates in good faith just like he does, which I think is refreshing.
Yeah. And people take him to fucking task all the time for like, because, his formula is essentially a very simple one, but it's also very elegant. It's like, take genre films that he grew up with and elevate them into their like prestige Hollywood films. That's what all these movies are. To an extent. Some more than others, some work better than others. But I just find that criticism, like, it's not that, it's just saying what the films are. It's not really a criticism, because those movies are fucking entertaining. And every time Tarantino puts something out, everybody goes and sees it. Who else still is able to, like, he's making movies that cost $80 to $100 million that shows happily pay for, that every A-list fucking star in the world is dying to be in, and that everyone goes and sees in the theater. So I'm at like, I've talked about this before, but whether you have problems with any of these guys, Tarantino, P.T. Anderson, Wes Anderson,
Yep.
Fincher, whoever, any of these fucking guys, and you can make small gripes with all of them. I have issues with some of them. I'm not a huge Fincher guy, whatever. But when cinema as a form is dying, and you have this like last line of defense of guys who know how to finance and make a work of film art on a mass scale to be received by a mass audience, you should support them. You shouldn't like endlessly fucking gripe about what you don't like about the fucking movie. At worst, you can just not see it.
Yeah.
But out of all those guys, like how the fuck, like I don't get the Tarantino hate because none of his movies, even the worst ones, aren't fun to watch. Like they're all movies made to be like rewatched over and over. And
I have every single one of them. I watched them twice, I think, at least. I think every single one of them. Yeah, exactly.
At least twice. And then some like Pulp Fiction or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think I've watched like over 10.
With people, you take them to new people too. Like that's I like Zoller did that for me, but Zoller doesn't have the mainstream appeal that Quentin Tarantino does. But like I take a Tarantino movie to somebody who like maybe hasn't seen it before, you know, or have only seen a couple of them, and I'm like watching them watch the movie. It's like I want to know what they think. And like we don't have those people anymore because for one, even if somebody is rushing out to go see the movie, it's usually a franchise that they're wanting to go see. Star Wars, Marvel, you know, any of these things. They want to go see this director take on that franchise or whatever, you know, and it's very Reddit, very annoying and stuff. And most of the time people do hate it. It's weird. Everyone goes and sees it, but everyone's hypercritical of it. But Tarantino, everybody ends up liking it. It's the same pool of 2% of people that hate it that nobody listens to. They don't have any clout in the world, like either. Like it's never anybody like actually matters that hates it. It's always like some guy who, you know, some random Jezebel journalist or something that just nobody will remember their name ever unless you're hyper online. Nobody will remember that whatsoever. But like then also, you know, in this book, actually another thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I was trying to formulate this opinion of what Tarantino is to me and why I like him so much. And two things, I think people need to be proud again to like actually admit that they're influenced by something. Like not even to the point of like I appreciated this when I was a kid. Be like, no, this is in my work. Like this is actually in my work. And Tarantino will spill out he'll drop the like damn recipe for his movies. He doesn't care. Like it's like this is Peck and Paw, you know, mixed with you know, whatever other movie. But he's also, and which makes him somewhat of a collage artist, I think. And I know you have a history with collage art, and I have a history with sample-based beat making, which is the same thing, and just in audio format, where I don't know if collage art in the visual art community is actually looked down upon as like a lesser art, but sample-based beat making is amongst somebody who can like play a guitar, you know, like a guy that can play a guitar will be like, okay, but you're just taking a guitar or whatever from whatever record and putting it over drums. It's like, okay, but it sounds sicker than your shit. Like it sounds sicker. People enjoy it more. And I think Tarantino, his willingness to kind of give up the recipe a little bit, because he knows you're not going to make it better than him most of the time. So he's not worried about his intellectual property ever being, I just think of him as a sample based like hip hop producer to me, is like how I think of his movies, you know?
Yeah. And it's especially like in the music argument, it's particularly dumb because it's just like trying to make some modernism versus postmodernism argument. But even music made with traditional instrumentation now is mostly postmodern, just because it's really nobody's like inventing new genres anymore, new styles or whatever. But yeah, Vincent Gallo is the first one who sort of wrote and you know, love Vinny Gallo, much love to him. But he's the first person who kind of derided Tarantino as a collage artist. He is a collage artist. I fully admit that I'm also a collage artist, whether I'm writing a book or whatever, just because like if you came up of a certain generation where you're constantly internalizing content, then it shapes how you think. But that's just like letting yourself, that's like giving yourself over to the time that you're in. And Tarantino is like part of there's still a historicity behind him. Like Godard is the same thing. Godard was a film critic who really fucking loved American thriller movies like Hitchcock, and, you know, sort of jizz them into a little French avant-gardist sensibility. And there you have the French New Wave. Tarantino's references are, of course, different. He's, you know, for one, he's openly said he doesn't like Hitchcock, which I find to be crazy, but whatever.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he says he likes Gus Van Sant's Psycho more than Hitchcock's. I think was one of his like more ridiculous takes. But yeah, he's doing pastiche. But ultimately, the way the movies function, it's an elevation of the genre signifiers that he's referencing. So he's very much a part of the studio system. He is making movies to be considered for award season with high-level movie stars, you know. But within that, he sort of breaks down the references to B movies, westerns, or genre thrillers, blaxploitation, whatever. And by doing that, he's obviously creating his own aesthetic, but he's also forcing an engagement with a side of film history that is often ignored. And dude, like, there's one thing that I just like absolutely love about Tarantino, which is that like his eye for detail is unreal. Like sometimes the moments that like really sit with me, that really blow my mind, are the ones that don't go recognized as such. Like Uma Thurman and John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, they have their sort of like awkward, drugged out date at the Jackrabbit Slim's restaurant, and she wants to dance on stage. Now, Travolta is so good in this part that you almost forget that he's John Travolta, the greatest fucking white boy dancer in the history of the goddamn world. So when he gets on stage and he starts dancing, and you're instantly like, holy fucking shit. It's like he's so much better at moving in that sequence than is actually like necessitated for the role. But the fact that he's so great makes you remember this is John Travolta, fucking Saturday Night Fever. This is the goddamn guy. So so Tarantino's like simultaneously creating this like super iconic moment, but also whispering at the greatness of this actor who people have largely forgotten about, at least at the time.
He was a has-been at the time. He was a straight up has-been. I mean, it was like to the studios when they wanted that film to be made, the studios were like, it's not going to be Travolta. And Tarantino says, well, this movie does not get made unless I get Travolta for this. And they wanted, the studios, I believe, wanted Kurt Russell in the part, which love Kurt, wouldn't have worked. It just wouldn't have worked. He's a great actor, but it's just, the fact that he needed it because Tarantino, if he's a stan of anybody, it's De Palma. You know what I mean? He like absolutely loves De Palma. He loves Blowout, and that was I'm trying to remember after Blowout what Travolta's last hit would have been before Pulp Fiction. It's not what would it have been?
He definitely did a few more movies throughout the 80s. Hold on,
but he was struggling. He was not. He
was struggling.
He wasn't drawing shit at the box office like as a lead, you know. He wasn't. It was definitely this was definitely a revival, and he was a little heavier. You know, he looked a little heavier in the role. Like he was definitely not the svelte kind of, you know, Travolta of the 70s, though he still looked really cool in the movie, of course, in Pulp Fiction. But just his idea of like at the time you're this guy who's living on borrowed time because you sold a script for like True Romance and shit like that, and you're just this Blockbuster employee or wherever video store he worked at, you know, you just but then you have the gall to, what's that,
dude? Travolta had no movies between 85 and 89, and then he had 2 in 89, 1 in 90, 2 in 91, 1 in 93, and not one of these fucking movies I even recognize.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, Tarantino like fully revived his career.
It's Blowout, right? I mean, it's essentially Blowout. It's like it's like the movie that is that's like probably the last hit, or I don't even know if Blowout was. I mean, I'm sure it was a hit, but it probably wasn't.
I mean, after Blowout, he took 82 off, and then in 83 was Staying Alive, which is the Saturday Night Fever sequel that no one has ever seen.
No.
Including myself, and I've watched Saturday Night Fever like 50 fucking times.
Fuck no. Yeah. No. Exactly. And so you know, the idea that I love that part of Tarantino so much. And also, so, you know, another thing that he's here's the other thing that he does in this book, and you mentioned it a little bit too, is the reason I think of him as a sample-based hip-hop producer, in a sense, is that, like, not only is he going to make a great song that has like a melody, like, where's that from? Where is that? Maybe that is from an old Western movie, that kind of scene that I've seen or something. But also like a producer, like there's a drum break called "Impeach the President" by the Honey Drippers. It's in almost every 90s rap song, it seems like, or some iteration of it or something. Do you know how many records that "Impeach the President" sold when it was a song fresh on the charts? Not jack shit. I don't believe. I'm not going to look it up, but it was not a hit. It was not a hit song, but it was an exposed drum break. And look, maybe they got fucked a little bit on the royalties, but there are a lot of nerds, me, who went and bought that record on vinyl. You know, I don't know about their recording situation, how much money they made off my sale off that. Probably not much. But that being said, I found out about that through that. And I don't know that I watched The Wild Bunch, because I'm new to being a film guy, like, or at least watching a lot of films. I don't know that I go watch The Wild Bunch without Tarantino. I don't know that I do. So it's like, but then I immediately see Tarantino in the film, but I respect them as two awesome things. And I see like a lineage rather than copying, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, even when he does copy, it's still very interesting in the way that De Palma was like copying Hitchcock.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't think any of this shit is an issue if ultimately the product works, you know? So, I mean, and Tarantino does a lot of cool things too, like Pulp Fiction, which I 100% believe is every bit as good as its legacy suggests.
Yep.
You know, like the soundtrack of that movie, he wasn't really familiar with that kind of music, all those great surf rock tracks and lounge music and Tropicalia. So actually, the music advisor on that film was Boyd Rice, the industrial music musician.
I didn't know that.
And now is like, yeah, because now Boyd is like persona non grata for his politics. So it's like sort of buried in the lead when you read about the history of the film. But Boyd talks about it all the time, and like, you know, talks about meeting Tarantino and at first being apprehensive because Boyd is this sort of like underground purist, and meeting Tarantino, he thinks, like, who's this Hollywood dick? You know, how much is he going to pay me? But meeting him, and then he's like, no, he was just like the coolest, funniest, smartest, most enthusiastic guy he had ever met. And that Tarantino is one of those guys. Even when he says retarded shit, it's always so likable and affable. Like, you know, he's done all those like 3-hour interviews on Bret Easton Ellis's show, and he says tons of shit that I think where he's just trying to be like contrarian in that sort of like 90s Gen X kind of way. But it's never vindictive. It's never like schnivelly. And he makes me laugh. So I fully consider him like a kindred spirit in a lot. Not sure you would consider me a kindred spirit, but I consider him one.
Dude, let's find a way to talk to him. That's a reason. Part of the reason we're doing this episode is like, there's like a little thing in the back of my mind. I'll be like, he's probably never heard anybody talk about his book from our perspective. I don't think, like, at least this, and like, he's weird enough to like somehow that could get in his hands. Like, he's just like and he's just such a nerd for all this stuff that like, I think, cause he went on Tom Segura's podcast, Your Mom's House, and it wasn't Tom's fault or anything, but Tom got his Tarantino's assistant didn't send him the book until literally the day before the interview.
Oh no.
And so like when they start talking and they're riffing, Tom Segura will show him like videos of like Asian guys getting run over by cars and stuff, and like ha ha ha, you know, they're funny, but like Tarantino's like, so we're gonna talk about the book and stuff, and Segura's like, yeah, I mean, like, I haven't read it yet, and he's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, but it's you know, it's like, and it's not Tom's fault. He because he's a Tarantino super fan. Like he's like, I would have like even 3 days prior it would, because it's not that dense of a book. You know, three days prior I would have done it, but it was literally the day before. And I'm also a fucking stand-up comedian. You know, like I have a job and a podcast. So I just was laughing like, man, it would be so fun to just one day like have this reach him at some point. And we haven't said too many mean things about his mom yet. So or
No.
derogatory about his mom yet, so that's good. But
I got no issues with his mom. I think it's cool that she liked fucking black guys.
No, your thing, like exactly. And I love how like some of them clearly played for like the LA Rams too. Like some of them were like actual like NFL guys.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and it's also like you can tell. I mean, someone like Tarantino doesn't really happen unless his like mom or whoever is encouraging his interests. So she clearly gave him a space to just like be a nerd and to think and to read and to watch movies all the time. So she's probably a cool lady.
yeah. So let's talk about the time. The one thing I think he put in, and again, I'm still more of a normie as far as like getting deep inside films and like the history of films, but I do love the decade of the 70s. I love late 60s up until the early 80s, probably more than anything. And I don't think that's the
new Hollywood.
I think most people do, right? I think that's where most people who get into movies like that stuff. But he breaks it down so good. So, you know, you have the late 60s, you have your easy riders, right? You have your hippie kind of like fuck society, like fuck all this stuff, like, you know, the World War II generation, like, you know, we're the post, you know, baby boomer World War II generation. We're gonna be the ones that fix this country because it's going to hell. And then you have the response of their parents essentially being like, this country's going to hell because of the fucking hippies, right? And that's where you have Tarantino. One of the first movies that really blew his mind was Joe, which I just watched last night.
Which is a total conflict between those two sensibilities.
Absolutely. And you know, it's funny, the way it was billed to me was kind of like this reactionary movie, which of course it is. I mean, Peter Boyle's rant in the bar. I mean, it's definitely of that sort. But there's also like, just between like the one of the things I saw was like the enemy of your enemy isn't your friend. That's like a huge thing. That's a huge part of all this. Like that's
and Joe is like,
yeah.
Joe is not a likable person in this movie. He's not the hero. He's like the fucking devil on the shoulder, like fueling this well-meaning father's like reactionary sentiment. You know, it's not like it's like the hippies are bad and Joe needs to vanquish this fucking degeneracy. It's like, no, this degeneracy isn't really good for society overall, but also like you shouldn't like give in to your basest instincts, and that's what Joe represents. He's like the fucking satanic little presence being like, kill these little faggots, kill these little fucking fools, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Joe until I read this.
I mean, yeah, same. It was just amazing. Like, and I'd seen it on Tubi, but it looked almost hackish to me. Like not even for like a 70s movie, but like it looked. You got a copy? Oh, is that Criterion? Yeah. Based.
No, this is just a good Blu-ray release.
Nice. No, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But it's just funny, like the little scenes between, like, you know, like I said, enemy of your enemy is not your friend, and that's very true. And like, especially when you're trying to be like an edgelord in life, let's take violence completely out of it. Let's just say you want to say transgressive things. Then you find, so what you do is you say something and maybe you feel a little guilty about it. Maybe you're like, damn, that's not me. That's me just kind of fucking, that's me emptying out the back of my mind. And that doesn't necessarily, we don't need a society where the back of my mind is for the public all the time. And perhaps, but then you look to find the one guy that's going to be like, nah, that was sick. What you said, actually, that was tight. Even though I'm a fucking loser getting hammered in the bar, yelling at my wife for putting fucking onions in the ground chuck, you know, other than that, like, you know, but then you're like, well, you know what? I need to find the guy that validates my bad behavior. You know, it's like
absolutely
the wife chewing with her mouth open in front of the rich people and just talking with her mouth full of food and stuff. Like all those subtle details are so good in that. And you see Tarantino. It's fun to watch when Tarantino tells you about a movie. It's fun to kind of see the Tarantino elements of it. The slow moving beginning, right? The slow build up, and then just the absolute rolling thunder-esque ending to it. Like, it's great.
I mean, what else is really interesting about Joe is It's a film, it kind of defies auteur theory to an extent in the way that older movies used to, because the auteur of Joe is the screenwriter, Norman Wexler. John G. Avildsen, the director, he was more of like, he's like a craft first, like handy studio director, so like Stallone picked him to direct the Rocky movie, but we all know that Rocky is Stallone's fucking movie.
Right.
Likely Joe is also Norman Wexler's piece. So like Norman Wexler, this like sort of Jewish intellectual, and that's another thing. It's like this movie's not written by like some fucking shit posting edgelord. It's written by basically like a fucking Red Scare communist, 60s hippie.
So many of those are like that, dude. Because like I just finished watching Boys in Brazil. We just did an episode on the Boys in Brazil, and you would like, I understand it's not, but it's like kind of they don't hold back in some of the language there. But it's written. The book is written by like the most Jewish sounding name Ira Levin of all time. Like,
Ira Levin is amazing, dude.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I want to read his. I haven't read his books, but anything that's been adapted has seems really fucking good. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm like fully. I'm becoming like Jewish supremacist these days.
It's tough to argue with the catalog.
Tough to
argue with the catalog, man. Yeah. So, but you were saying this, how Norman Wexler was not he was just kind of like a commie Jew kind of. Like,
yeah. And I think he probably did have complicated feelings about what was happening at the end of the 60s. And Joe is kind of like a meditative piece. It's sort of like it's the first movie to really capture the hangover of the Summer of Love in a really sort of raw and violent way, because the hippies were no longer like experimenting with acid and making love. Like for every single kid like making love in the mud on acid, there's like another girl getting fucking gang raped in the same scenario. For every person experimenting with drugs, there's another person strung out on heroin and controlling people around him with drugs. And I have to say, don't know who that actor is, but whoever played Susan Sarandon, the daughter's boyfriend, the
junkie guy with his hair, like this weird hair that covers his eye. That's so
weird. I have never hated someone more in my fucking life in a movie. So I think it's like a really memorable performance. And when the dad kills him, you are in a sense being like, fuck yeah, like kill this piece of shit.
Yeah.
And it kind of plays that intrigue.
With his gross back, with the fucking mole. He had those moles on his back that looked like shit splatter, like a spray fart all over his back. I was like, dude, everything about you is revolting, dude. Yeah.
Exactly. And like the way it plays that is really, with that is really intriguing, because like this guy kills him in a moment of justifiable rage. And but then like the aftermath, he of course feels he's a human, so he feels the full weight of what he's done. But Joe gives him this like interesting relief valve where he can replace that guilt with this sort of like proud feeling. And that, when you allow your conscience to be overridden by that sort of violent id, you end up like further and further down the road. And that's what's kind of cool, is the movie's called Joe, but he's not really the main character. He's just the he's just like the devil. He's like the Iago of the movie. And he doesn't even really have the fucking balls to do anything himself. He's a fucking blowhard. And is really only able to do violence by after being influenced by the main character who committed this violence in a moment of anger.
Yeah.
So, like Joe really is this kind of just like impotent fucking rage. Like, I have nothing against racist jokes and whatnot. I love them as much as the next, but we all know that fucking guy like Joe, who's just like this vulgar, rude piece of shit. And you're just like, dude, shut your fucking mouth. Like, it makes you want to just like put on a fucking BLM t-shirt and like a
100%.
pussy hat. You know?
Yeah, it's unsettling. Like his rant is like, I expected to laugh, and like the first couple of lines, I'm like, ha ha ha, you know, like that's funny. And after a while, you're the bartender. The bartender's looking for any task. I love the bartender in that scene. He's looking for literally any task he could do, because we've all been that guy at a workplace or something where you're like, I need to just go pretend I don't hear any of this, and like I need to like just, it's like a, you know, your own form of social distancing in a way or something. You're just getting, he's like shining every glass in the bar, and Joe's going off. So people are going to go answer the phone, going to do phone calls, all this shit, and they're like, God, let me get away from this guy. But like you said, Joe is kind of like the I would have beat his ass guy. Like the guy, when you tell a story about a bad situation you were just in, and you're like, yeah, and I was on fucking here, and I was like, you know, this guy was talking all this shit, and then he like grabbed my shoulder, and like his yellow teeth were in my face, and I just like walked away, and I was like, man, fuck that guy. And then they would have been like, well, I would have beat his ass. You're like,
exactly.
But you never have. Like, you never have. Even Joe's like war shit. Who knows if that was ever true? You know, like that people could come back from the war and said they did anything, right? He probably was, but you know, it's you don't know if any of that stuff's true. And like I said, you could watch it around that time. I grew up watching a lot of like TV from the 70s, but not a lot of movies. My grandpa always loved the show Dragnet, which was like really, really campy, like, you know, boomer shit, like essentially, like, or not even boomer, before them, but there would be like same type of lighting, like that weird psychedelic like lighting, purple lighting inside like a gross shit stained heroin house. And there would be like the premise of Dragnet would be like, oh, these hippies, they accidentally put their baby in the bathtub and the baby's dead, you know, like, yeah, and it would just be that, yeah, those type of premises and all that stuff. But Joe is so much more real and like gritty. And it's funny, these are made at the same time, how TV, which Tarantino gets into a little bit, how TV was just so much different than movies. Like it was just, we've never had a difference. I think TV is more edgier than our movies now.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
You know, as far as gratuitous violence and stuff and cursing, you can cuss. FX made it okay to just say fuck on TV. Apparently,
yeah.
I mean, like it's crazy.
The violence on TV now is like so excessive that it's honestly like too much at times. Like, like to think like in Irreversible, that was like what, 20 years ago now. Seeing a head smashed into bits was like what the fuck, like the most fucked up thing in the entire world. But now you can, like, you know, it was already 10 years ago that True Blood was showing, like, a hate fucking scene where, like, a vampire is, like, twisting the bitch's head around, like, 180 degrees before he fucking super fucks her or whatever.
Right. You have the like, for me, I even remember the first time I ever saw Goodfellas. Obviously not, I was born the year it came out, but so much later. But I saw the, like, the Ray Liotta butt of the gun to the guy's face, which is still one of my favorite scenes of any movie I've ever seen. But you know, hey, what's up, asshole?
Oh, that is just the best, dude.
Yeah, but that jarred me. Like, that jarred me. I was like, the sound is like, oh my god, like. Oh,
you know how fucked up you would be after getting hit like that. But it's just such a great scene because it's just like it's just something all guys have wanted to do at a certain point.
Oh, you know, over your
like,
girl
that
too.
Is how you fucking handle shit. It's like. Like, that guy is never going to wink at your girlfriend again.
He's going to move. He's literally going to sell his house and move. Like, you're done.
Truly
like, it's
amazing.
it's like if you were in the Old West and you killed a guy's, burned his crops and killed his livestock. You're like, well, what are you going to do now? Like, you're going to stay here? You're gonna like, that's the epitome of like what that was. But then, like, you know, so you have the movies like Joe, you have the Death Wishes, you have, Dirty Harry, which is another one I'm really glad that Quentin Tarantino gave some time to, because I'm a Clint Eastwood super fan. I wouldn't say Clint Eastwood's my favorite director or even actor, but he's probably my favorite person in film, because I just find him. Yeah, I just find him, just like Michael Crichton's not my favorite writer ever. I find him to be the most interesting writer. Like, it's just two different things. And but I love Eastwood. I've read his biography and stuff. He's just like a quintessential alpha, you know, but very stoic. Eastwood was very scorned by like never quite getting the James Dean treatment of like the kind of hot guy in Hollywood. Everyone told him he was too ugly. He looked too old.
Which is like crazy, because he looks great in all these fucking movies.
Awesome. And women loved him. He had like 9 wives and like 100 kids. Like, he was just like fucking constantly the entire time. He had a spreadsheet.
And there were a lot of movie stars were different back then, dude. Like, there weren't, now every movie star is like a generic genetically gifted, like
Mhm.
ultra beauty, right? But back then, like there was Gene Hackman, there
Mhm.
was Dustin Hoffman, who I guess
Right.
is sort of handsome in like a
Jack
snooty
Nicholson,
Jewish way, but not like
even Jack Nicholson,
yeah, Jack
right? The same.
Nicholson's fugly looking.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so like I think compared to those guys, I think Jack Nicholson is. I mean, sorry, I think Clint is
Eastwood.
obviously like really good looking, but
Yeah, but he was on Rawhide. He was on a show called Rawhide for the longest time. It was kind of just an old like Bonanza-y Western kind of show, and he wanted to direct a few episodes. They let him direct some of the promo commercials, but he wasn't allowed to spread his wings. And he was under one of those insane TV contracts where they're like, "We'll give you $20,000 for 80 years of service," like one of those like insane like TV deals like back then when movies were like there was only like 7 people that could be in movies, so you were just kind of fucked. And so he was under that, and he learned under a guy named Don Siegel, who was a very, very accomplished, good one, like just amazing director. I mean, Escape from Alcatraz and all the work they did together is just so good. I believe The Beguiled is another movie.
The Beguiled is amazing.
Amazing rape fantasy, colonial rape fantasy, witchcraft porn. Amazing.
The most disappointing film experience I had over the last 10 years was Sofia Coppola's remake of The Beguiled.
I won't even watch it. I won't do it.
Yeah,
I won't do it. I won't do it. But anyways, but Dirty Harry was another one of those like reactionary movies. And like, if you ever go back and watch Dirty Harry, like it's fucking dark as shit, dude. Like, if you actually
I just watched it like a month ago.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, it's so good. And Tarantino pisses me off, and this is actually the common sentiment amongst a lot of people because he hates Magnum Force, and I actually love Magnum Force. I'm a huge Magnum Force fan. I don't know. I kind of love the whole like, I love the trajectory between, and Tarantino hates this trajectory of like we just allow serial killers to go crazy because of the bureaucracy, and nobody really wants to do anything in the first one. And then also in the second one, it's like nobody wants to do anything because they're part of the problem. I like that trajectory in the two, but I love the fact that he salutes Clint Eastwood, who like himself learned how to do everything just by being a student, just by being there. Clint Eastwood just watched Don Siegel and he was like, that looks fucking cool. Like what he's doing, that sounds cool. And I get to be in charge. I don't have some asshole that like, I mean, I have people working for me. And Clint Eastwood would do this thing where he didn't really like working with stars. If you work with Clint Eastwood as an old man, finally started working with DiCaprio, and then DiCaprio said he sucked. And then he was like, no, you suck. Actually,
well, I think DiCaprio was bummed out by the Hoover movie. Yeah.
Well, and DiCaprio, Clint Eastwood is a volume shooter, a quantity guy. Clint Eastwood is I need to have my movie a movie a year until I die, which could be 150 at this point. He's literally doing a movie right now, at 94, I think. And DiCaprio wanted to do. He's one of those. Give me 97 takes to get this right, please. And then Eastwood's like, no, that was cool. What you just did was cool. So it was, and then that coupled with the movie not doing that well, you can see that. But he didn't like stars because he'd like, dude, give me this B-list actor from this TV actor. I have a good story. I have a good story. I have a good writer. He had his Malpaso group and stuff. And I think Tarantino just basically, I think, took a lot of what Eastwood, that all writer, at least the control overall. Yeah, the workhorse, but then also was like, but Tarantino realized I can work with stars though. Like I can work with the stars. Like, and I think he's just a bit less of a kind of standoffish Sigma male kind of guy that Clint Eastwood would be. Yeah. But Clint was crazy.
Is definitely a ham.
Yeah. He's down to play the game. He's down to play the game. He'll butter up a star and then shit on it. He can do all that. There's no problem with that. But with these movies, then up until Jaws, right? Then Jaws changes the way everything. Movies were essentially watched, right? Was like, I think Tarantino points that timeline out perfectly because I didn't actually put 2 and 2 together there, that you had these, it was a battle, like a culture war between like this generation versus this generation about who's ruining America. And then all of a sudden Jaws comes out. It's like, actually a shark's ruining everything, and actually, this is crazy, like it just, yeah.
But I like the point that he fucking makes because of course, like Jaws did, of course, change the studio system a little bit. A lot of it. It was 2 things. It was the success of Jaws and the failures of Michael Cimino's
Heaven's Gate, right?
Heaven's Gate,
Mm-hmm.
which bankrupted United Artists Studio and
True.
forced studios to be a bit stingier with money. But still, like, and I think the book really captures this well. And he says, he makes the point that, like, even though Jaws was made to be seen by mass audience, it still feels like a highly personal project where Spielberg is obviously, willing his vision onto the celluloid without any compromise. So it still is a product of the new Hollywood. And what Tarantino really captures about that fucking era is that for the weird, it was weird also, but for a brief window of fucking time, the studio system of the 50s was sort of starting to fail. They couldn't keep up with these generational shifts. The hippies and rock and roll came out of fucking nowhere, and they had to change their thinking. So what happened was, for a little while, the fucking avant-garde, nerdy freaks got to run the fucking show. And it was glorious. For a brief window of time, Hollywood film was an avant-garde, modernist industry at the forefront of fucking everything. And for like 12 years, they put out so many fucking movies. They lost money. They made money. Stars were made. Stars failed. And then it was basically all over by the 80s when studios were like, maybe it's a bad idea to give a alcoholic film student $50 million to do whatever he wants without any of our discretion. Maybe we should start being a little stingier with our money. But I think what I liked about the book the most is it really kind of captures this time capsule of like of a mainstream industry that for a brief amount of time was very sort of experimental.
Yeah, because the reason I bring up the Jaws thing is because right after Jaws, not right after, but within 2 to 3 years, you have Star Wars that comes out.
Yeah, and then Star Wars, it's like shut down.
That nuked everything, right? I think that's what nukes everything, because the movie that came out, I think 2 weeks after Star Wars was, and I know you love this movie, it's probably top 5 of all time for me, was Sorcerer, William Friedkin's Sorcerer. That was one of the biggest bombs at the box office ever. But if you watch it, oh my God, like it's like one of the best. I can watch it a million times on a loop if I had to.
Absolutely.
It's so good. It's so
good.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a very alienating film, so you can also kind of see how it, if the world is going like one way, did you watch the Arnold documentary?
No, my wife said she loved it. She watched it when I was at work. Yeah, I need to watch it.
Parts 1 and 2 are phenomenal, and of course I'm like an Arnold super fan, so it's cool. But Arnold is talking about how the success of his movies and 80s action movies and these things were contingent upon the fact that like Reagan had gotten elected. There was this new sort of renewed faith in the American system. People were making money hand over fucking fist. All this sort of like fuck the system shit was starting to feel a little old-fashioned already. So, Sorcerer, as great as it is, I mean, it already, okay, here's like 2 things that it did wrong. First of all, the name. Yeah. Horrible name for that film. Because if you're seeing Sorcerer, you're like, oh shit, a fucking wizard movie by the guy who made The Exorcist? I'm definitely going to fucking see that shit.
Good point with The Exorcist. That's a good point about The Exorcist being the reason people heard about it, probably. Mm-hmm.
Of course. And Friedkin, had a couple monster hits. But then you see it, and it's about these 4 fucking convicts trying to drive, like explosives, through this treacherous jungle. I mean, it's an amazing setup for a fucking movie and like incredibly tense, but that's just a failure of marketing. Sometimes these things just fucking happen. A lot of great things don't get their due in their time.
Yeah, and you brought up something interesting about the like Reagan and just the economic times. 70s largely was a huge recession. You had the gas shortages, a lot of stuff you see today. Unfortunately, we don't have the as much of the 70s art that's out
Water
there right now.
shortages in LA.
Yeah, all that stuff. Unfortunately we don't have any. But like, I was also, I've been reading for Gain of Fiction, been doing a lot of Dostoevsky, and I one thing Tarantino brought up was that how so much of the 70s, because people wanted that gritty kind of self-hate, kind of mad at the world feeling. So many people were trying to adapt Dostoevsky like in the 70s, the movie which is to say adaptation might not be so good, but it is an adaptation, is The Gambler. Carol Rice's The Gambler, which is with James Caan, which is, I think, the best gambling movie ever. But like that movie was, you can barely even buy a Blu-ray of that right now. Like, people don't, that hasn't even resurfaced yet. But for a while, I think it was De Palma was supposed to do A Gambler in the 70s, which that would have been interesting. I don't know that I would have loved it as much, even though I love De Palma. But there's rumors that Paul Schrader, I'm going literally about to read Notes from the Underground for the first time, so I'll decide this for myself. But apparently that's supposed to be the Max Cady character from Taxi Driver. Apparently, and that's what he said in the Tarantino said that in the book. That was like kind of a lunch meeting that happened where they were basically saying for Paul, Paul Schrader. Everybody has their Paul Schrader opinion. Paul Schrader wanted the pimp to be black, as you said in Taxi Driver. He definitely wanted to make that movie a little bit more honest, I guess.
Which is crazy, because he was definitely like obviously more edgy back then. Now I don't know. He pisses me off all the time now.
I know, everybody hates him. I don't love him. I don't have a huge opinion, but like people. I know, like, you've said some things, Jack says some things about him. I agree with what Tarantino's probably his harshest criticism is of Paul Schrader in this book, I would say. And it's honest. Yeah. I wouldn't even say harsh, but it's, if you were to just, keep a score, I guess, of love versus not love, Schrader gets the most not love, but I think all of it's right in a sense, where he's saying like hardcore falls apart. Everyone says that. It's a great premise for a movie. It falls apart and it turns into a really weird like chase thing, and the climax is way too early,
like halfway in.
Yeah, and that's the problem when you let Paul Schrader direct something versus just write something, because a director he can't pace. He can't pace.
He's not a filmmaker. He's a writer, and even his best fucking movies, like, and that's why I get kind of fed up with him, because there's been a total like Paul Schrader meme since First Reformed came out. So I remember like being excited to see First Reformed, and then just it was actually one of Michelle and I's early dates, and at that point she kind of loved everything that I showed her. Like, we watched all of Twin Peaks and The Sopranos together.
Cool.
She was very much enjoying like entering my world, and then I take her. I'm like, oh, this guy Paul Schrader, he made this American Gigolo. He's got a new movie out about this crazy priest, and then we see it. And she left the theater with this like really pissed off look on her face. And I was like, what's wrong? She's like, I fucking hated that movie. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking hated it too. Like, it's just awful. Like, feel bad to feel bad. Him trying to recreate the glory of Taxi Driver, but like with the whole climate change angle was just so fucking dumb. Like, I don't know. It just didn't make sense. Like, it's a movie that seems like it's supposed to be about a guy, like losing himself to reactionary sentiment. Instead, he's just like getting blackpilled on climate change. And after that, he's just been putting out endless piece of mediocre trash after the next. The fucking Card Counter. You mentioned The Gambler is the best gambling movie ever. I would say The Card Counter is one of the worst. The Card Counter dick teases you the entire fucking movie about a torture sequence, because the guy is a Abu Ghraib torturer. So you're waiting the whole movie for him and his training officer, played by Willem Dafoe, to torture each other. What does he do? He fucking fades to black, and the whole thing happens off screen, which is like, he tries to make it arty, but it just seems like he ran out of money. and then the new one is about a reformed Nazi with Joel Egerton. It also sucks ass. So I watched all these fucking movies, and I always watch them. Like, I don't know why, but I just feel compelled to like keep building my case against Paul.
Because
Schrader.
everything's content now, Adam. Everything's content now. So you
Yeah,
can't.
you
Of
just
course,
gotta
why
consume.
wouldn't you? Why wouldn't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
You know what my wife and I's first date was? We've been together for a long ass time. Our first date was Burn After Reading in theaters.
Oh wow,
yeah.
You guys have been together a long time.
I was young, and I love the Coens brothers. I still do. I will defend them over everything. I didn't really like that movie that much. I need to I haven't seen it since, so I'd have to rewatch
it's not
it.
their best. I don't think they really. I think a lot of their later career movies are pretty bad.
Yeah, I didn't like
but
them.
just like
the musical one's not very good either. I didn't like that Western little Buster Scruggs. I didn't care for that.
Oh God, no. Oh
Yeah.
God, that's just Netflix like trash.
People love them though. People love those movies. Like people tell me they're great, and I'm like, dude, I love the Coen brothers. I love them. Like but then
the good ones that like there's also really good Coen brothers movies that aren't appreciated at all. Like The Man from Another Place with Billy Bob.
That's a good one.
Is that what that movie's called?
I know which one you're talking about. I like A Serious Man a lot. I think that one doesn't get.
I think that was actually the last great one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
They split up. The Coen brothers are working individually now.
Yeah, because what they did, one of them was it Joel that did the Macbeth with?
Joel.
Yeah, that was good. I liked the Macbeth.
I liked it. I mean, I like Denzel, and I like seeing him do Macbeth. So.
Exactly. So that with other things in the book, I think it's very fun to talk about how like his black friend that showed him all the cool movies, and I love how his black friend, his top 5 actors were still all white guys too. Like they were all like,
well, there weren't many. There weren't a ton of black movie stars yet.
No, and
besides the blaxploitation guys and like Sidney Poitier and shit.
Yeah, and he would just say like he'd be like, those guys are cool, but you know, these guys are better, and that gave like Tarantino that kind of objectivist kind of, I think, like that kind of just. Yeah, that's why I love Tarantino, because he's just objective. But one thing I noticed too is like, you know, what do you think Tarantino thinks of like David Lynch and shit like that? Is that even something he even explores? Do you think?
He's never said, but I'm sure there's mutual respect there.
Right, because if you think about what he says, is like it's like he doesn't really get to like. Because Tarantino, when he's critiquing something, he is a plot man. That man is plot. It's gotta have pacing, and it's gotta have plot. And what are you gonna say about a fucking David Lynch movie? You're really not gonna factor in those two things at all.
You know, come to think of it, I do think I've heard him talk favorably about Blue Velvet.
Oh, that's cool.
But I don't think he mentions it.
Let's see.
But just type in David.
Because I wonder what he thinks of these art, like these, like, you know, the classic like art film directors. Like I just
wonder.
He's
a big Godard fan. I know that. Like huge Godard fan.
Oh, the 5 directors Tarantino hates. That's the first thing that came up. This isn't good. This isn't going to be good.
Oh no!
Hopefully, David Lynch. Jesus.
When
David Lynch. Okay, all right. Let's see if this is really what's happening, because this is in Far Out magazine.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Far Out is like the king. I get sent their clickbait all the fucking time.
Okay, so this might not be at what we're saying. So when David Lynch took his surrealism to new heights with Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me in 1992, he divided audiences. Tarantino was firmly in the camp that he hated his David Bowie fronted epic. It was not a David Bowie fronted movie.
He's in it for like 5 seconds
with a southern accent, yeah. And it prompted him to comment, David Lynch has disappeared so far up his own ass, I have no desire to see a David Lynch movie until I hear something different. Jesus. But that's
so
Tarantino.
That makes sense. So he liked Blue Velvet, but gave up on David Lynch after Fire Walk.
And then of course Lynch is such a like in his persona, his real life persona that he chooses to show everyone is so aw shucks golly kind of thing. He said, I loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's so cool. You know, so he didn't care. He doesn't give a fuck.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was a masterpiece, and still
I did love it.
Man, oh man! Like I loved it the first time I watched it. I loved it more with every single watch, and it's just because it came out the year before COVID and whatnot. but it really hasn't gotten the post-release praise that it deserves, because it is he's made two infallible masterpieces in my opinion. Pulp Fiction, which is the film of a young director, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is the film of a ruminative director looking back on everything. And just like, to me, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood felt like the ultimate cherry on his work, because all his work is about the construct of Hollywood. So this movie is literally like a theory fiction in which he explores this fictional construction of a Hollywood myth in which this has-been TV actor kills the Manson family, saves, well, no one will ever know this, but inadvertently saves Sharon Tate, and we have to assume becomes a Hollywood fucking legend in the aftermath. Like, absolutely brilliant, touching, amazingly acted. The movie has this sort of like breezy quality to it.
Polanski, it reminds me a lot cinematography wise, like in certain, just the way he films Margot Robbie and like the way he like sees Margot Robbie, a lot of like from behind with her hair shots and stuff like that. And that just reminds me of, and this is going to sound weird because it's not the same movie, but I know he loves Polanski. So it's like, it reminds me of like Repulsion when she's just walking through the streets.
And I'm sure that's conscious too, because Polanski's in the fucking movie.
Exactly.
It's about his wife, you know?
I think there's so many odes to Polanski there. And like that movie, I hadn't really gone down the Polanski rabbit hole when I saw the first time I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because that was when I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that was when I was kind of just like Scorsese, Tarantino, those are like the goats, and I still love them. I haven't loved them any less, but I found other things that stick to me a little bit more. But then when I went down the Polanski rabbit hole, and my wife said the same thing, and she's just like, this is like totally like Tarantino, like just a lot of these, even the Tenet, like just some of these, the way he chooses to like show people, it just, that movie I think was such an ode, and it's not corny, right? It's not corny in a way like where you see somebody doing nostalgia, where if you ask somebody who's from that time period that they're calling back to, like my mom hates like cheap 80s nostalgia, right? Like where it's everybody's wearing Cyndi Lauper clothes and fucking shit like that. Like she's like, that's not how people dress. That was like how like 4 kids dressed at school. She would say that, but like Tarantino was like, no, this is what it looked like because I was there,
Right. And that, well, also like the way he depicts LA in that movie is very specific, and also reminiscent of Chinatown, because it's not like the beach. You're not seeing Venice Beach. You're seeing Sunset Boulevard. You're seeing the Hollywood Strip. You're seeing the hills. So like, it captures like LA is just like this kind of matrix of dreams.
It's like if Polanski directed Rolling Thunder. That's like how the movie goes.
Yes, and the chapter on Rolling Thunder fucking rules too.
Oh, the best! How he calls the director, was it John Flynn? Is that his name?
John Flynn.
John Flynn. He calls every John Flynn in the phone book for LA. He said it took him almost 20 times. Finally gets the guy and he says, "Hey, can I have an hour of your time?" Which, as a podcaster, so true. That's how it works. When you shoot above your weight class, you punch above your weight class. It's exactly how it is. But you find he goes there and he talks his head off. It ended up going forever. He loses all the audio of it because he didn't bring enough tape because he thought he was only going to have an hour. But it's wonderful. He nails the movie. I hadn't even seen the movie yet until that. And I immediately, I hadn't finished the book yet. And I was like, I told my wife, we have to watch this tonight. And she's down to watch whatever. She's totally submitted to like my taste in movies. So she just is like, put on whatever you want. Like, and she usually loves it. We loved it. Her parents hadn't seen it, and they're reading the book as well. Both of them, they saw it and they're like, unbelievable. How did I not see this in the 70s? And Jack from the Perfume Nationalist podcast just did a episode on that. So I won't go super far into the movie because I don't want to, just say the same thing, because he got it right. It's exactly everything he said was true
also,
about it.
Paul Schrader's script.
That's right. And again, Paul Schrader, he can write. Should just
and it's interesting because Paul Schrader was a disciple of Pauline Kael, film critic,
right?
And
who Tarantino's doing something on her, isn't he? Isn't his
he's doing a movie about a film critic, and since he's a huge Kael worshiper, people are assuming it's based on Pauline Kael. But Pauline Kael she got his scripts read, and so he did a trilogy, basically a revenge trilogy, Taxi Driver, Rolling Thunder, and this movie Yakuza, I believe, which is like impossible to fucking find.
It's on streaming. It's on streaming. I didn't watch it. It's somewhere. I'll find it because I was gonna watch it the other night and I just didn't get around to it. I saw it.
I think I'll put that on soon. So like, obviously the guy knew he has an imagination, but Pauline Kael, when American Gigolo came out, and this is I was trying to say this before, like Schrader, even his best movies, like now that I've watched all his new ones and hated all of them, I'm just like going back and watching the old ones, and even movies of his that I thought I loved, like Mishima and American Gigolo, which I would say are the two best. They're still very flawed films, almost, and disjointed. They have a weird flow. They almost feel like sloppy in a way. He really is a screenwriter with dreams of becoming a director. But it just shows you that there is like a specific skill set to a director, like control freakery, ability to manage people, ability to direct actors, and ability to fucking edit. And I don't think Schrader has that. I think if he had just like kept focusing on scripts and let him be directed by, Paul Schrader, directed by Cronenberg, Paul Schrader, directed by well, not Paul Thomas Anderson. He writes all his own shit, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Then he would be a much more important figure as this sort of like legendary screenwriter.
Sure.
But I think, Tarantino also says this in the book. None of his movies really work that well.
He's right, and he's right. Here's just real fast wrapping up this list. His other director, one of them's Hitchcock that he hates. We've already talked about that. That's whatever. I mean, everybody's got their weird thing that they hate. But Jean-Luc Godard, he hates him.
Yeah,
apparently. Godard. Yeah.
Tarantino hates Godard. That's fake. That's totally fake.
Let's see. There's a quote. I'll read the quote. Let's see if we, because this could be fake. You're right. That's one aspect of Godard I found liberating. Movies commenting on themselves and movie history. To me, Godard did to movies what Bob Dylan did to music. They both revolutionized their forms. Blah. Okay, that sounds like a compliment. But he says, however, typically in French fashion, that didn't raise stock in Godard's camp. I think his work is null. I see. They're saying Godard doesn't like him. And Godard doesn't like Tarantino. He chose the title of one of my worst films to name his production company. That doesn't surprise me at all. He dubbing him as non-authentic. So he's talking about Tarantino here. This may or may not have influenced Tarantino's reversal on his appreciation in return. And then he says, Tarantino, I'm not really a big fan of Jean-Luc Godard anymore. He stated in an interview where he discusses his cinematic role models. I think Godard is kind of like Frank Frazetta. You get into him for a while and he's like your hero for a little bit. Then you start drawing shit like him and you outgrow. That's what Godard is, at least for me anyway, as a filmmaker. He's being a hater right there. He's just being
he's just better. But
that's kind of a dick move.
The first interview he did on Bret Easton Ellis's podcast, it was just full-blown Godard worship, like the entire fucking episode. But it's fun. That's an interesting thing on both their parts, because what Godard is saying about Tarantino it absolutely applies to Godard. He's the original like collagist as narrative filmmaker, and I don't know, but whatever. Yeah, that's still like a clickbaity article, because like the Godard influence in Tarantino is like
he clearly likes him. Yeah, he clearly likes him.
Yeah, Godard isn't just like a signifier that he adopts like he does with blaxploitation or westerns or whatever. Like the approach of Godard, which is to sort of kink pre-existing film language, is Tarantino's approach. So it's like the defining influence in his goddamn work. It would be like me saying I don't like J.G. Ballard after naming my entire fucking project after his
That's true. At least it would be his best book. But yeah, not his worst. Ballard would, I hope, wouldn't call anything crash related his worst. Hopefully, because I think it's his best. But another one's John Ford. I know he's an old Western kind of director. It's tough for me to.
I mean, he's a master.
He is, yeah. Cool. And Leon, I think it's, they're basically saying Tarantino just thinks Sergio Leone wipes the floor with John Ford, which I would imagine there's probably Leone probably looked up to him because to John Ford. There's no way, because Leone even said, this is a weird Sergio Leone quote, who I love Sergio Leone, but when I was younger, I believed in three things: Marxism, the redemptive power of cinema, and dynamite. Now I just believe in dynamite. And so which is actually kind of based when you think about it.
Yeah, and I think what Tarantino probably means, because I think, like, honestly, for me, I tried watching Stagecoach once.
Mm-hmm.
John Ford with John Wayne. Yeah. And it is kind of a slog to watch now. Like, it's like these like action movies without any, like, it's very hard for, like, someone who's, grown up on slasher films and whatever, and like The Sopranos level violence, and
yeah, I just read Louis L'Amour's Hondo. I read Louis L'Amour's Hondo. That was my next book, and it's like I actually enjoyed it, but there were times where I'm like, oh my god, like when does this girl get raped or something on the frontier by a bunch of Apaches, and it just doesn't happen. I'm just like, well, yeah, because he's trying to sell this to like people at church and shit. Like it's like
I think what he means is that Sergio Leone got to up the ante a little.
Oh
bit
sure.
On what he was able to show, even though those movies are PG, but they're certainly more violent than
100%. His last one is Wes Craven, which that I don't know. I guess that I don't have a strong opinion on Wes Craven, but it says Tarantino's love of blood, gore, and violence is well known. So with that in mind, you can maybe predict his problem with slasher classic Scream. It was bloody, gory, or violent. It was bloody, gory, or violent enough. I could have imagined doing the first Scream, Tarantino told Vulture. The Weinsteins were trying to get Robert Rodriguez to do it. I don't think they ever thought I'd be interested. Oh, so this sounds like another jealous kind of thing where he thinks he should have got a certain project. I mean, whatever, that's fine. We've all been there. We've all been there. But in closing, with this, Adam, can you guess my favorite Tarantino movie?
Guess your favorite.
It's not Pulp Fiction. I mean, it's up there, but it's not Pulp Fiction actually.
All right, so I feel like you're the type who's going to have your like singular lane. But you still want to go back to the OG, maybe Jackie Brown?
No, I do love Jackie Brown. I mean, I love all his movies. I like his most Reddit movie, actually. Inglourious
Bastards.
I fucking love Inglourious Bastards. I understand, because now Nazi punching is like just the most libtarded. Like it is basically you could watch that movie. I get it, but at the time when it came out, my dad took me in the theater, and when you play David Bowie Cat People, when you're burning down the fucking Leni Riefenstahl theater, dude, oh my god, I was so in on all that. The Christoph Waltz opening scene where they're under the floorboards, I loved it all. I loved it so much.
Me too. I love that movie.
That's the one I go back to the most, because it's fun. It's just I love Fassbender, whatever that guy's name is, Michael Fassbender.
Michael Fassbender, who's going to have a huge comeback this year.
Is he? We need him.
He's the star in Fincher's new movie, The Killer, that's coming out, starring Michael Fassbender. It's already getting a lot of buzz. I thought Michael Fassbender was the best actor, period, to come out of the early 2010s.
Amazing.
But that motherfucker has a disastrous agent. And after like, I would say 2015, when he got all the accolades for playing like the super slaver in 12 Years a Slave, which is not a movie I like, but he's still very good in it. Mm. He just had like one bad fucking movie after the next, and it's like, who the fuck is forcing him to do these fucking scripts? I remember watching like this one called like The Iceman or The Snowman or something, and it made me go like, this motherfucker needs his own Ari Gold, like, he needs his own like Eric, like in Ari Gold, like getting him some better shit to work with.
Oh, I know. I loved him. Wasn't
But
because
yeah,
wasn't
he's
he
having a comeback.
wasn't he Carl Jung in that Cronenberg movie?
Yeah, he was. He
Oh,
was. He was really good in that.
so
Not
good.
Tarantino's best movie, but a little better than most people think it is. I mean, not Cronenberg's best movie, um, but that's not due to his or Vigo's fault. It's due to Keira Knightley's like preposterous
Horrible.
performance in that movie. Horrible.
With her jaw, her weird fucking jaw, dude. Oh my god. No, you're right.
Man.
I love that. I love that movie though. I still really enjoy it. But
And yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, yeah, but Michael Fassbender, I remember just thinking, like, Jesus Christ, this guy's got it all. He's absolutely fucking a beauty.
Beauty.
And, like, can project so much menace and anxiety. Like, it's really rare to be able to be, like, that preposterously good looking, but also to project all this sort of, like, weird energy on screen. So I thought he was just such an amazing actor.
Oh man, like he's kind of like a like if Army Hammer was actually like really really good, you know, Army Hammer's fine, but like
I
love
Army, but yeah,
I love his off the camera work personally, but I
want to eat your skin, I want to lick your fucking shit, like
I love it, dude. No, that shit's awesome. But Fassbender could play that role. He could play Army Hammer's. Like if all the Army Hammer accusations was real, I hire Michael Fassbender to play him to do it. It's like that's dude, what I would.
Did you see that HBO Max put out like some like Army Hammer like horror documentary?
My mom told me to watch
it. And then he was like fully exonerated like 5 days after it came out.
And then, it wasn't on the thumbnail of like watch now on HBO Max anymore. Like it was like they moved it down. They're like, yeah, you're fine. You can skip this one if you want.
Army Hammer took one for the fucking team though.
He did.
Because like full on, if anyone's reaction to that was like these bitches are like this is like a beautiful ultra rich movie star that could fuck anyone he wants. Literally, this is all fake. But still, there were a lot of people who were like reacting with rage against him. Now, like the last like 3, like when Conor McGregor got Me Too'd last month, within 2 hours, people were calling bullshit.
Yeah,
like publicly and loudly. So
community notes, man. We're doing community notes. We're
getting them. So I feel like Army really was like the final straw in the Me Too movement. And then Johnny Depp.
Exactly. So all that stuff. Now, to wrap up here, give me the next time you come on, we're hoping to get your new novel. I would like to promote your new novel.
It's very close to being done. I just got back a couple edits today, actually. But
and what are we talking about here? You don't have to say, give too much information on it. What? I mean, are we? You write a lot of theory fiction. Is this more of a straightforward novel?
This is definitely a straightforward novel with like a front to back story. It's long. Took me a long time to fucking write. I still feel kind of burnt out from it, to be honest, because I got commissioned like right when I finished it to write another book for a new company for like more money than I've ever fucking made in my entire life. So, but I'm having trouble getting it going because I hate that in between phase when you're like finished with a project but waiting for it to come out.
Oh yeah.
So whatever. I'm just focusing on my fucking anabolic enhancements right here.
Nice.
Cool. And then and get working out, taking some time to myself to relax. But yeah, the book is it's a bit of a sort of similar in tone to like Beau is Afraid in a lot of ways because it's like comic horror, but also becomes kind of like a touching morality play and also a love story. And it kind of shifts in tone wildly because when I first started writing it, I was like in my most like hateful zone, like hateful zone and like resentful. And then towards the end, I don't know. I think a lot of that sort of faded away, so it becomes much more empathetic to the material. Anyways, I'm really fucking proud of it. And,
you should be.
And looking forward to it coming out.
Yeah,
I
I can't wait.
Are you going to LA in September?
I'm gonna try. I'm hoping to get. I'll probably drive down there if so, but we'll see. We'll see what's up with that. But I definitely it's on my schedule. Hopefully I can make it work.
All right, yeah, because I'm supposed to go and read some of it.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's cool. So, yeah, it's funny. I researching a lot of authors doing the gain of fiction stuff that we do. I research everything Crichton Charlie Rose asked him what's the hardest part about writing. He says starting. He's like, fucking just, he goes, I got ideas. He goes, but committing to one and sitting down and then putting it on he goes, once I get going, it's just fucking like, it's not even me anymore. Like, it just flies out of me, but it's that, I mean, it's just like working out too. The hardest part of working out, I mean, you might not be struggling with this anymore, but the hardest part of working out is just going to the fucking place that you work out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And going out for a run, putting on your shoes, going outside, and then taking the first fucking 10 steps, like,
yeah. It's when you start banging, start pinning a gram a test, and you'll just be like, fuck
it. Yeah. Everything else is hard, but not that. Yeah. Everything else.
Yeah. No,
exactly.
I fucking run to the gym with like the biggest smile on my face now. Like you just learn to like love the pain.
I remember there was an MTV True Life. I would love to rewatch this. There was a True Life, like it was kind of like a My Strange Addiction, but it was MTV's True Life, where it was like these 3 people that were addicted to the weirdest. And one guy was addicted to working out, but like not even like he wasn't jacked. Like he looked like Curtis Yarvin, like this guy. And he like, but he would sprint to the gym, like at a random, he'd be like eating dinner with his family and then like go run to the gym. He would have his jeans on and everything. He would do like, no joke, like 2 reps and then leave. Like he was like, he was just he was addicted to like going to the gym.
Yeah, that's just like, that's retarded. I thought it was just one of those things where he just like had shit genetics and just like never grew. But
no, he was like,
there are people like that,
Yeah, he was just the compulsive guy, but he was like, he would then get like guilty when he was at the gym. He's like, well, I just left something important, so he'd go back. He would be constantly be in this like in between worlds mode.
Man. So just like OCD to the max.
It was so stupid. I gotta find that's got to be on YouTube somewhere. It was
Dude,
so
I've seen like there's like horror stories that because there's so much like anti-anabolic propaganda everywhere, but the ones they always use are like the horror stories of people that like jumped on a cycle like 2 months into their working out, and then all that happens is they just like get the worst fucking side effects, like zit all over their backs and lose all their hair and don't make any gains. That shit always kind of blows my mind. It'll show this like fucking skinny fat, like bone thin little loser with just like a back full of acne and no hair, like flexing. I'll be like, holy shit. But that's because people don't know what the fuck they are doing.
Yeah. Right. But here's the thing. Like I laugh because I know you're not an RFK guy. I only like a few things. Some of the stuff that he says. Guy. No, but I'm not even. That's not even where I'm going with this. What I mean is like I've liked Children's Health Defense's site. I've liked that since like the fucking 2009. So it's like anything that dude does to get a more of a platform, I'm like, cool, sounds good to me. Electorally, I don't give a fuck. Can't wait till he drops out. Then I can interview him. Like just shit like that. Yeah. But the funniest thing was what people would say to him. They'd go, RFK is scared of needles, right? Because of all his anti-vax stuff. But he takes fucking growth hormone or whatever, because he clearly does. But like,
he's probably on TRT, testosterone therapy.
Lying. One of them is one of those things. The needles that you want him to take is completely lying to him about what it fucking does. He's clearly knows exactly what testosterone or TRT, any of that stuff does for him. So it's like, I'm pretty sure he knows what's going into his fucking body, and he's fine with looking jacked at fucking 65. Yeah,
dude,
can't
it's
bench,
so
but
funny.
It's okay.
I was just watching, because I watch like a lot of bodybuilding and UFC content, and they always talk about like the drugs and whatnot. So, but I was watching a video between current pro Nick Walker, former pro Guy Sister Nino, and Seth Feroci, former pro. And they were talking about the vax because this got two bodybuilders in the last week have died. Gustavo
Yeah,
Podell.
what was that guy's name? What was that other guy? The guy the YouTube, he would have
Joe
like a huge sick
Aesthetics.
ass. Yeah, he was cool, dude. I liked that guy.
Oh yeah. Joe Aesthetics was a lovely, lovely guy. Yeah, he competed in the men's physique division, like the board sports guys. But when these guys die, the first thing they always fucking blame is, of course, the drugs. And in
Sure.
some cases, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
Like Andreas Munzer, this guy, this European guy died in '94. They found the journal of his cycle, and it was just like, especially the '90s guys, because they didn't really know how to calibrate doses yet. This guy was taking like fucking, I think it was like 1,600 milligrams of Tren a week, and
Savage.
like 800 fucking milligrams worth of Winstrol tablets and diuretics year round, because he made a lot of money doing magazines, so he could never go over like 8% body fat. So in that case, yes, his liver fully fucking eroded. But with Joe Aesthetics and this guy yesterday, Gustavo Podell, who he had a pretty good career. He finished third at Mr. Olympia behind Ronnie and Jake Cutler in 2003. And both these guys died of fucking blood clots, which is like,
it's the number one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Gustavo, downsized, he was probably taking TRT as a maintenance dose, but he wasn't like fully in his bodybuilding cycle anymore. And Joe Aesthetics, like, he's like a growth hormone sort of like lean guy, but not dumb, not like the type of guy who would just abuse every fucking thing in sight. So like, but all these guys were saying like, yeah, it's very clear to me that they died from the vaccine. That's why I didn't take it and I won't take it. I thought that was hilarious. Like, these guys will fucking pin anything into their bloodstream except for the vaccine.
Well,
I love that shit.
And also, like, these guys understand. I mean, look, you might laugh like certain things. Like, these guys understand how to be healthy, so they're not
Absolutely.
like. I mean, some of them understand. So, like, one thing is like, this is how I get bigger. This is how I get stronger. Okay, great. But then you say, actually, we take this experimental shot, and this is how you get healthy. They're like, bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna. I didn't realize how young this fucking Joe Aesthetics guy. He's younger than me.
30.
When he,
dude.
30 years old. You don't get blood clots at 30. That's not a thing that happens to fucking ripped guys. Like, it just doesn't. Like, I know I think it was an aneurysm, but that's caused by a blood clot. So it's like that's not something that happens. And it's like, I get annoyed as a motherfucker when literally anyone dies, because I'm one of the guys who like has been shouting that these deaths have been happening, but to just say like, this guy, this guy, Hank, the Hank Aaron 95 vaccine, which there's something there, but I don't feel comfortable shouting that from the rooftops that a 95-year-old guy died from the vaccine, because there's a lot of other things that could have happened.
Yeah, he's 95,
there's certain guys when they're fucking 30, when Justin Bieber, half his face is fucking paralyzed for no reason. People are like, oh, he's doing too much coke. Justin Bieber would never do bad cocaine.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
Bullshit.
Yeah, he would not have
Who
bad
gets
cocaine.
fucking face paralyzed from cocaine? I have literally shot heroin. I've shot heroin and cocaine into my vein at the same time, and I'm in an elite physical condition. Like, that's fucking preposterous. Like,
right. And his wife got the fucking shit too. The same thing. She has a little something going on too. It's like the Bieber girl, the Baldwin girl.
Haley Baldwin. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
they both have. It's like
crazy.
Exactly. It's like, dude, like, and I don't, again, like I said, I'm not those like died suddenly people. Like, those guys, those accounts are like, there's a grift to be had in here, but there's a way bigger grift on selling shitty fucking products to young, healthy people as life.
People love just like, you know what a part of it is too? Like say, take Conor McGregor, for instance. He shattered his leg in 2021 fighting Dustin Poirier. And yeah, he's probably holding about 15 pounds more of mass because he definitely used test and growth hormone to heal. And everyone's screaming at him like on his Instagram, "You're gonna die, Conor." And it's like, look at him. Look at how the guy looks in a fucking suit. He is obviously more healthy than 99.999% of American men of his age. So, I always get so pissed off. Like, people, the people who ask, like they look at me and they ask if I take any shit, and I'll be, I don't lie about it. Like I'll just be like, yeah, I experiment with some anabolics. They'll be like, isn't that bad for your heart? And I'll be like, not as bad as you drinking fucking beer 6 nights a week, eating pizza every goddamn night, and smoking a pack a day.
That's correct.
Fuck off.
It's like the guy that the people that say like touching receipts, right? That's a big like right wing bodybuilder thing. There are chemicals in receipts that can get it. That like the newspaper used to be the same way, dude. Like there's these chemicals in there that are like microplastics, all that stuff. What did you buy to get the receipt? You bought bullshit that's in your fucking bag. You're eating that. So unless you're buying like amazing quality food, don't worry about the receipt. That's always like my thing with all that. So like, yeah, you're right. You'll be talking to some fucking guy who's just skinny, who's naturally fucking skinny, right? So he thinks he's healthy, but he hasn't eaten anything that wasn't out of a fucking like wax paper from a store, in over a year or since COVID or whatever. But they're now they're czars on health and stuff. And like I said, dude, like the testosterone, like would I take it? I don't think it's for me. I'm actually trying to get skinnier, so it would be cool to be the inverse of you, to be the guy that gets like fucking that shrink like
testosterone can boost the metabolism.
Well, I might need that, but no, it's not. My metabolism's okay, but
John Jones, when he tested positive in the UFC, it was he wasn't taking testosterone to get bigger. He was taking it because he was getting older and the cut was becoming more brutal. So when he was like on his cut, his testosterone spiked to like nothing. He was like gonadal. So he took TRT to get, just this is like for basic like quality of life shit. And the league used to allow this. The UFC used to allow TRT for fighters that were testing at gonadal levels. But ever since fucking USADA took over, they just banned everything that you can't get in a GNC. So.
Oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers the same way. Everybody wants Aaron Rodgers to take a shot now that he's in New York, especially going to Taylor Swift concerts. Everybody still can't deal with the fact that they can't fucking deal with the fact that this healthy man who never actually got sick, or sick to where you could laugh at him about it, didn't want to take his shot. But I remember that everyone harkens back to this game against Chicago a while back where he ruptured, or I think it was a sprained MCL, which wasn't a tear, but a sprained MCL while it happens.
Pretty brutal injury.
Especially when you have 300-pound guys ready to tear your head off, and you have to kind of you have to throw. You throw with that. It was his plant leg for throwing. So, and this is in cold Chicago Bear weather or Green Bay, one of the two. Both are cold. And he got carted off the field. He came back and beat the Chicago Bears, and everybody's like, damn, they probably shot him up with a bunch of painkillers. Very true. That's exactly what they did. If you look at his post-game interview, he has Mickey Mouse fucking pupils, and he's like, yeah, my knee just really hurt, but I came back in and I fucking tore it up. Like,
that felt amazing.
Yeah, and so they go, well, you'll do that, but you won't take a coronavirus vaccine. He's like, correct. That shit was awesome.
Yeah,
the fucking painkiller. Yeah.
Well, painkillers are super non-toxic if you're not like an addict for them, right? Like,
and he saw the benefit of it right away. Like he saw the benefit for it right away. And
that's the difference, right? Like if I take fucking Test or Deca or whatever, like I know what the harmful side effects are, but I also know what the positive effects are. So I'm making a decision based on what I know about this compound and what I'm willing to risk. The whole thing with the COVID vax is I had no fucking idea what the risk was, and the benefit wasn't there at all.
And you shouldn't have had to. Why would you have had to know the what's behind the curtain of this company that we give taxpayer money to fuck it? That's my problem. Like, why do you have to listen to a weird esoteric podcast to find out that something's bad? Like, why do you have to? Yeah. I'm not trying to run myself out of a market at all, but like at the same point, like, why should you have to go through one of the biggest censorship campaigns we've had since 9/11? Arguably worse, probably since more stuff's on the internet. Like now than on around 9/11, there's more stuff to censor. Why should you have to go through all of that for us to be proven exactly right? And like, some people predicted like a crazy, Holocaust apocalypse level thing of death. And it's like, look, there is excess deaths. You can look at any chart. There are excess deaths. I just want those explained. I just want those explained to me. Explain to me why. It's the same thing with the autism thing. Tell me why the autism's there then. Like tell me why. You can't just say genetics for everything. We can't just ascribe, we can't some people think genetics are everything. I don't. They're definitely something, but people didn't become retarded 33 to 1 rather than 10,000 to 1 like it was.
Like a spike in autism genetics, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
If it's genetics, there would have to be like a similar percentage per population in perpetuity.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't make any sense.
You're right. So on that note, I'll probably have to paywall the last half hour of that because we're on YouTube now, and we're trying to survive on YouTube. But for an hour and a half, you can hear us talk about Tarantino and wonderful things on there. But that was really good, dude. Thank you.
Of course, bro.
Anytime we'll have to do McGregor back wall with you too as well.
That would be fucking sick, dude.
We have to.
Goddamn best.
We have to. We him and I have a huge blind spot for MMA. We had one MMA episode with somebody I don't particularly care for anymore. People know he's another weightlifter.
But a different. He's a fucking weightlifter, not a bodybuilder.
100%. Yeah, we need a bodybuilder. He puts
the fucking weight up over his head. He doesn't know how to condition or harden the muscle. Nah, man. Your New England just came out. You said harden. It comes out every once in a while. Now you're right on. So safety propaganda. If you don't know it, if you don't know it by now, I don't know what to tell you. Make sure is that just safety propaganda substack.com? Is that the URL? Make sure you go there. Follow Adam on Twitter if you can find him, because I still can't even find him on the search thing. But no, I can't find myself.
Dude,
on
it's hard.
The fucking System of Systems account. When I try to @ myself, make sure I can be able to retweet the fucking Systems tweet, I don't come up.
My Glenn one, which I only tweet sports from, like I literally like once a week I tweet on that. If that, I that one is shadow banned. I'm like, why? Like, not the one I fucking will just say whatever I want from is not shadow, or maybe it is, but it's definitely not to that level. It's still searchable, but I don't know, man. Look, Elon, I got mixed feelings about him, but whatever.
Yeah, dude, that shit was a total fucking.
And then of course it's a political argument now that you have to support.
I know. I feel like I can't even say this. Like, everyone is gonna yell at me.
No, fuck no. I grew up fucking in the valley that he made him famous, dude. He's always been a fucking fag, dude. I'm sorry. It's just like, look, his product that he put out in the world stinks. This is his best one, is Twitter. So whatever you say about that,
fuck those cars, man.
They're horrible. Adam Lehrer, thank you once again. Next time when your book's out, put us on the press tour, please.
Of course. All right, man.
Right on, dude.
I'll talk to you soon.